All right, so about Michael. Okay, Michael. Coogan has over 35 years of experience in marketing, leadership, and creative direction. Michael guides strategy, messaging, and client relationships. He is a Story Brand certified guide. Didn't know that was a thing, but that's super cool. I'll have a keep us at 10 next time. John Maxwell, certified speaker and coach, and a passionate advocate for clarity in marketing. And with that, let's give him a big hand. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. It's great. It's great to be here. It's been great stuff so far today. It's been fun to listen in. And you were reading that description of my talk, and I realized, I wrote that before I actually figured out what I was going to actually say. It's close. We're in the neighborhood. Obviously, good marketing is good marketing. You guys have already heard a lot of really great things today. Dorian had some great things to say. Michael Redmond had some great things to say. Even Mark had some great input. He's a marketer. Tyler earlier as well, who just had to take off and leave, had some things that are just really great things. There's a lot of consistency and overlap, right? And we all kind of approach it from a different kind of angle. Before I kind of get diving into words and talking about the importance of words, I've been doing this for a long time. MC2, this is our 36 year as an agency. Yeah, it's been pretty cool. It's been, it's crazy to think that our agency started before the internet was even a thing. That's really crazy. So we've had to adapt quite a bit over the years. But I think one thing that's been pretty consistent that I've seen working with hundreds of organizations, and it's been really neat because being born here, we're founded in Chico, and we've had a fairly large regional presence, and we've had a national presence. But because we were born regionally and you need to eat early on, we've ended up in lots of verticals, lots of different spaces. And a lot of agencies tend to kind of niche into one thing. We have not done that, and contrary to some kind of thought leadership around how you run your agency, you should niche. But when the economy has tanked, we've had enough verticals that we're still thriving, that we've actually grown in down economies instead of shrinking because our niche didn't tank. So I've been grateful for that. But one consistent struggle that I've seen across many of the organizations is not necessarily a bad product, bad people, it's been bad messaging. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. For some reason, we make it really hard for people to understand us and what it is we actually do. And we talk over people's heads. And most organizations, whether they realize it or not, in some shape or form, are actually talking over their clients or their customers' heads. And I know sometimes that might land hard, but I've literally sat across some hundreds of business leaders over the years. And I'm here to tell you it's almost always true. And the reason is that you are so good at what you do. You're so close to it. You're so proud of it, and rightfully so. You've kind of forgotten how to talk about it in a way that makes sense to everybody else that's not you. Just is so familiar. All the language is familiar. We have our own vernacular within our industry, even within our teams, and so trying to get out of our own way as far as that goes. And that gap between what we know, what we communicate and what our clients understand is actually costing us real money and real relationships and growing our businesses. So I want to talk today about kind of finding your magic words. And this is a Soundbite framework that I'm going to walk you through. I know it's easy to be clever, but these aren't clever words. It's sometimes easy to be cute. These aren't cute words. They're not sophisticated words. And they're not even necessarily nuanced words. They're kind of the survival words that you need to find for your business that really connect to the right people, and the right people will pay attention when they come across your brand. And I think finding those things is probably one of the most important things that you could probably do for your business. So here's the controlling idea across everything I'm going to talk about today, is that a confused mind says no. When we're confused, when we're confused by a website, we click, or confused by something, we scroll on, we just don't buy, we don't engage. Confusion actually creates friction for us, and we're just like, I don't want to deal with it. And most of the time, the confusion with brands and with entities is not their fault, it's ours. In the way that we're communicating it, we've made it a little bit too complicated. And so there actually is some science about this. I won't go into the nerdiness of it, but our brain actually burns calories when we're trying to figure things out. It's actually burning energy to figure out information. And when we make people burn too many calories to figure out what it is that we do and how we help them, then they typically are just not going to engage with us, and they're simply going to move on. And so that amount of mental energy that we're putting under somebody to understand our message I'm just going to call it the cognitive load. What's the cognitive load that we're placing on people? So when you're coming up with those messaging sound bites, the idea is that the nuanced thing is not your friend. They can't be super comprehensive. You can't explain everything. I know it's hard not to, but they really do have to be shockingly simple. So here's kind of the universal principle that the lower the cognitive load, the more people we're going to place orders or engage with your brand. It really is that simple, and I've seen it work over and over and over again. So everything we do with our messaging and our communication should really be geared around reducing cognitive load for our customers. Fewer calories we burn, the less things we have to understand, the more likely we are to move forward. There's this thing called the curse of knowledge, and this kind of relates to this. When the more you know about the business, it's actually the harder it becomes to talk about it simply, and I kind of alluded to that already. You understand your business so well, and you should. If you're an expert at what you do, you should understand on a scale of 1 to 10, you should know it at like a 9 or a 10. You have a deep level of expertise. You know your industry, you know your terminology, you know the nuance, and so you use it. But your customers really don't have any idea what you're talking about. Most of you are smart enough to realize that at some level, and so you do try to quote unquote simplify your message in the way you talk, but you usually will get to like a 6 or a 7. Unfortunately, all the science and all the studies shows that people actually make decisions at like a 2 or a 3. Like very, very, very simple language. When you think about it, we're moving quickly, we're making decisions quickly. If we have a problem we need to solve, we don't have a lot of time to expand to figure something out. And the difference between a 6 and a 2 is actually quite enormous in that gap between where we're trying to simplify it to where we actually need to be. And so what I have found is that the brands that communicate the simplest are always going to win. And it's not necessarily the best brands. There are a lot better brands out there, but the ones that communicate simpler about what they do are the ones that actually have more success. I'm going to give you a scenario that everybody can relate to, right? When you have a headache, you go to a pharmacy, you're not feeling well, you're in a hurry, you want something that works, and you're looking for something that's this, right? Super clear. Headache relief. Live pain-free. I know what I'm going to get, right? Low cognitive load. Unfortunately, this is what most people are selling us when they try to sell a product, is the back of the bottle, right? They're communicating their methodology or their systems or their processes or a deep list of features that maybe I don't really care about. How do you cure my headache? And so no one really buys from the ingredients. They actually buy the solution to their problem that your ingredients or system provides. And so when people are scanning quickly, they're moving through life, they've got some problem or need that needs to be met, they're going to buy the outcome, they don't buy the formula, and quite frequently this is how we're trying to sell to people. So people buy products only after they hear or read words that make them want to buy those products. Right? You see it, you read it, it triggers something in us. There's some connection with some problem or experience that I'm having, and that's what triggers me to buy. It's typically a problem level connection that they're experiencing right now in the moment. It's an actual problem, not a problem you think they should have. That's something that I've seen quite frequently, is a lot of people come to market with a perceived problem, and it's not an actual real problem, or at least the way people are verbalizing that problem and trying to solve it. So again, it's the simplest brands that are going to win. The brand that communicates simply is going to get the attention of the audience. So let me show you some examples. I'm going to show you some examples as kind of like high cognitive load, so you can kind of get it, kind of see how it plays out, some of the little subtle ways it kind of happens. And so this is actually what I'm going to show you is a composite of a real website. I've tweaked it a little bit, but I see this quite frequently, and this is the main thing on a homepage of a men's clothing store. Welcome to Refined & Company, where fashion meets function. Since opening in 2019, we have been dedicated to not only outfitting the conscious consumer in elevated everyday essentials, but also to championing sustainable practices in our industry. Sounds great, sounds good, but this is actually very high cognitive load. And let me show you why. Let's walk through this, right? So welcome, where fashion meets function. So, I think this is cognitive load because What exactly does that mean? Every time I have a question of like, it's kind of a broad statement. Where does fashion meet function? That adds cognitive load. Since 2009, I don't care when you opened. I'm looking to buy men's clothing. And actually, I think that statement hurts. You've been open for 7 years. You haven't been open for very long, right? We've been dedicated. I hope you're dedicated. And I can imagine that all of your competition is also dedicated. So it's like these seem like really kind of harmless words, but in a sense, we're like just creating this cognitive load in people's minds, trying to get them to engage with us. To not only outfitting the conscious consumer. I mean, again, more high cognitive load here. It's what in the world does that mean? I have no clue. Am I unconscious if I shop somewhere else? It's kind of like, it's jargony. It's just very interesting because we want to sound smart. We want to sound like we know what we're doing, trying to sound smart. And elevated everyday essentials. Again, what does elevated mean? Does that mean they're expensive? Because we're making assumptions here that our audience actually knows this. Are they expensive? Are they fancy? Are they just nice? Is elevated for some people could be a t-shirt, right? And then for other people, it's a suit. So again, it's like that idea of more cognitive load. And then the last line here, but also championing sustainable practices in our industry. Again, it doesn't relate to me looking for a jacket, a sport jacket, or a sweater or something of this nature. This company actually is in Colorado, and I came across this while I was in Colorado looking to buy a sport coat that I forgot to pack on a trip.
So you dissected their website.
Yeah, kind of beating them up. This is not their name, so But when I got there, they were wonderful people, and they had great product, and they were just really working really hard to talk people out of buying from them. They happened to be right on my way from my hotel to the venue, and so I did stop. But why didn't they just say this? Men's clothing looks good and lasts, right? Low cognitive load. If your mission was really important to you, you could have done this. Men's clothing built to last, good for your closet, good for the planet, right? It's still clean, it's still clear. It adds a little bit of mission without adding to the load of what we're taking in. So this happens all the time. If you spend any time viewing any websites, you see where people write these paragraphs of things trying to get you to buy or engage in their mission or their values, and they're just like weighting you down with all of these things that don't really help them do what you want them to do. So how do we solve all these? We solve these with Soundbite. This is a solution to high cognitive load. It's this idea of these short, clear, repeatable phrases. Good marketers use these all the time on accident, whether they realize they're doing this or not, or they do realize they're doing it, that really invite customers into a story. And they're not necessarily clever, but they're effective. And that really the goal is to say things, and we're in a world now where like our attention, there's so much competition for our attention too. So the faster and quicker we can get to the point with people, and the more likely we're going to get them to engage. So it's to say it so simply that really it feels like you just kind of wrote it down on a napkin. And unfortunately, it's kind of harder than it sounds. Saying things with less words and doing it with intention is a lot more difficult. So my whole goal today is to kind of show you this framework, and I'll dig into more of the framework here in a minute, of how we're going to decrease the cognitive load of all your messaging, what that looks like in every web page, what that looks like in every social post, every sales conversation. The intent is to make it easier for people to understand what you do and why they should care. Right? Linda said that just in the session before. Why do people care? What's in it for me? And we need to communicate the what's in it for me with people pretty quickly. This is a project that I got to work on, and I want to show you an example. This one's actually fairly subtle, but this is you need a budget. This is YNAB. They're a competitor to Mint, and it's a personal finance software. And if you would look at this website, you think it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Change your relationship with money. Then the subhead says, enjoy guilt-free spending and effortless saving with friendly, flexible method of managing your finances. So what's the cognitive load here? Actually, even though it doesn't seem like it is, because change your relationship with money is a fairly abstract statement, right? It doesn't quite go after the product. And that subhead is like actually trying to tell you like 6 or 7 things in one statement. And so businesses do this all the time, even in the attempt of being simple. It's like, oh, we have to say this, we have to do this. And clients are worried that, people aren't going to understand the full value of what we want to do. But the reality is once we get them in the door, we have the opportunity to have that conversation, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. So when we add more words, we add more explanations, we add more features, typically what happens is people leave. This is the rewrite. This is more geared to the problem of the client, never worried about money again, right? Way more clear, right? Way more engaged. Now, they A/B test these, so this, you might see this someday or another. There's a couple others that they're A/B testing, but simple, get YNAD, get good with money. So just super simple, 5 words, basically do the exact thing that we've kind of captured the idea of what's keeping the customer up at night. I'm worrying about money, right? And so just kind of leaning into that as far as that statement and getting people to, and it's shockingly simple. And I tell you, 80% of the time, maybe even more, I get pushback from clients every time when you try to get it like this. But this works. And I'll show you a few more examples why it works. So I'm going to give you, these are a couple brands that you should know. And this is like a what if they talked about their product like this. So what if this brand said, we feature a proprietary candy shell engineered to minimize heat transfer and reduce surface residue during consumption. Does anybody know the brand? Right. Instead, they say melts in your mouth, not in your hands. Right? And that, in a sense, is kind of they're answering the question to the problem of melting chocolate. The first one dies in the room, and the other one has been alive for 50 plus years. Right? Even if they don't use it anymore, it's still alive in our heads. Right? It's a soundbite that's stuck in our head because it's simple and we get it and it makes sense. Right? Okay, what about this one? XYZ delivers time-definite shipping solutions with advanced logistics infrastructure and end-to-end supply chain visibility. Any guesses? Close? FedEx. When you absolutely positively, it has to be there overnight, right? They don't even use this anymore, but this still sticks. They've moved off of this messaging. But again, it's another one of those things that, encompasses the problem of getting your packages there. And, I like what they did with this particular line from a marketing standpoint, from a words piece. It doesn't describe the company at all, but it describes the moment you're already in when you need them. And so that's what's like really good marketing copy. It's like that's the thought that's in the customer's head, right? Man, how am I going to get that there tomorrow? And so don't describe what you do. Name the moment your customer is living in when they need you. And so there's a couple examples there. So high cognitive load, as you've kind of heard me say so far, those are the things that are going to sync. When we have messages that just have this high cognitive load, they sync. Nobody remembers them. Nobody repeats them. Nobody probably even gets through them. They kind of die where you say them. Where the low cognitive load messages that I shared with you, they soar. They travel from person to person. They're memorable, they're repeatable. There's dozens of phrases that I pulled the room of like brands and things that you stick in your head because they've just done really well. So let me show where these sound bites go. And so there are 3 phases pretty much to any messaging campaign. This really is kind of a reduced, if you've spent any time in customer journey stuff, some people have broken this down into a bunch of different phases, but I like to keep it simple. So the 3 phases of the customer journey: curiosity, enlightenment, commitment. You need to get their attention, right? People need to figure out who you are. A lot of what Dorian does is attention, social media things, right? It's like that first phase, front door kind of thing, and then you have create other content that's more enlightenment content, right? There's this like social media is a big kind of curiosity place for this, Then they need to know how to understand what you do, how it works, and build trust. That's the enlightenment stage of the journey. And then obviously they need to make a decision. That's the commitment stage. And you need all of these 3 working together. So that curiosity phase, again, is where people stop and pay attention. A great example of this, if I had gone to the doctor, I'll use this. If you've gone to the doctor recently and they said, you've got some mild high blood pressure, it's not too much to worry about, but you're going to need to watch it over time. And, there's some things you can need to do to lower your blood pressure, like exercise and changing the way you eat. You now have this problem that you have, and you've just turned on your brain listening for things to solve that problem. So say you're walking through the mall and someone says, oh, it's pretty easy actually to lower your blood pressure. You automatically chime into that, right? That's the curiosity, like, oh, what do they have to say? Is there validity there? And so that's that idea of this curiosity level soundbite where you're communicating things that the qualified buyers to your product or to your service will actually peek up and go, oh, what does that mean? And want to dig in and know more. And then that's where they move into this enlightenment stage, this enlightenment collateral. And it's like, how much does it cost? Or what's it about? What are the side effects? How do I find it? What do I need to know? And those are like white papers and lead generators and YouTube videos and podcasts and keynotes and things of that nature, presentations. But it's after that, okay, you're curious. Here's more information that you need to know. And then obviously you need to get people to commit. And that's the third phase, is commitment. This is where people actually pull the trigger and buy. It's when someone's on the fence, you pique their curiosity, you've kind of given them more information, and now they're trying to decide, is this the right decision? And that's the point where they're standing between a no and a yes to move forward with you. And so I like to think of it this way. So instead of asking, would you like to move forward, like using a formula, it's more like if you're struggling with X, then doing Y is the right decision. And that's kind of a commitment message in the sense of you're not pitching, you're affirming, right? You're removing that last bit of doubt that might be keeping them from saying yes. So when you have all of these three phases working together, you have consumer curiosity, consumer confidence, consumer commitment, and then you start to actually literally move things forward. And I like to think of this as a house. I'm going to use a house analogy. I'll bounce back to this a few times. When you're walking through a neighborhood, I live in one of the older, chicer neighborhoods. We have some great craftsman homes, have beautiful front porches. I actually live like 2 blocks from Mark. And so this house has 5 front steps, has a nice front porch and a front door. You might call it curb appeal. It's very nice. It's very inviting. It makes me want to walk up there, right? If I'm in the neighborhood, I'm going to go up. There's an inviting aspect for me to get up. But a lot of businesses are actually communicating kind of like this. There's no real stairs. And the steps are kind of, in a sense, the curiosity factor. The porch you could talk about as being the enlightenment stage. The door's boarded up. It's like if I was taking my kids trick-or-treating in the neighborhood and saw this house, I would stay away from it. And then businesses that have high cognitive load in the way they're communicating about what they do, basically are doing this. They're making their business feel unapproachable. But if a business is optimized for that low cognitive load, I know to walk up the steps and stand on the porch and look around and be curious and be able to knock on the door But a house that doesn't have any front steps, that's something that I'm not going to engage in. So let's talk about the story-bound soundbite strategy. And these are the first things, and so this really what I'm talking about from the rest of the time today is those first things, those curiosity soundbites that you need to have kind of in your back pocket that the customers need to hear from you first. And so it's based around this framework that's called PEACE. So that is problem, empathy, answer, change, and result. And I will dig through these in a little bit more detail. So PEACE first is problem. That's what gets their attention. So you call out a problem they're experiencing, and this is the soundbite that makes them stop and pay attention. If I have high blood pressure and someone communicates something around that problem, or if I have a headache and they're talking about how great their pain reliever product is, it gets my attention. Empathy, and E is empathy, and this is where you show that you really understand where they're going through. This is the part where you create a bond. You create trust, you acknowledge their struggle. And then A stands for answer, and this is where you position your product as the solution. You tell them exactly what you do. And then C is for change. This is the transformation. You tell them who they're going to become when they use your product. And the E is end result. This is kind of like the happily ever after, the vision for that kind of better future for them. This is where you kind of close the story loop. So these 5 sound bites basically compose those front steps to get people to your front porch. So So this is what's happening when we are using sound bites and the way that they're structured in that framework is that we're inviting people into story. And what I have learned as a creative, as a storyteller, we relate to stories. Stories make sense of our world, right? It's like good stories compel us, they draw us in, they keep us hooked, right? And so when we do this structure of opening with, in a sense, with the problem and then showing empathy and showing the answer and then showing what the transformation is going to be and showing what the end result, we're painting this picture of this story. And humans are naturally wired to kind of follow this story structure. So, we live like, your customers are like this hero at peace, right? They're going through life and then all of a sudden something happens and they fall into a hole. Peace is disrupted. This is the classic story model. Right, some event happens and goes wrong. They found out they had a high tax bill, and now they need to know what they need to do, or their roof is now leaking because of a storm. Right, something's happened. Right, they experience a problem, and then the guide shows up with empathy, recognizing, man, I feel bad that your roof is leaking, but I know how to help you, or I know how to help you with that tax bill. And this is a framework of every story that ever has existed. And that guide shows up with some kind of plan or some kind of answer, right? They know how to help you. And so they throw you a rope to get you out of that hole, right? And so that's the answer that your product provides. And so they throw you the rope, you get you out of the hole. Then the hero, who's your customer, again, takes action. They take that rope, they follow that plan, they get rescued, and then they're transformed. And then the hero lives happily ever after. And the sound bites follow this same structure. And that's why they work. Not just because it's information, but it's story. And again, as humans, we're hardwired to think this way and pay attention to stories. So let me give you kind of a mock-up example of the framework and kind of how it works. I think AI is fairly appropriate these days. So we have a mocked-up example for a company called Clarity AI Advisors. And what I have seen in some shape or form, and this is, you don't necessarily need to have a soundbite strategy like that that's perfect, but every successful business that I have seen has some version of this, some version of a message that is clear, successful ones that connect with their audience and make them curious and make them want to buy. So they're not clever. Again, they're not nuanced. They're just really super trying to be clear. So here's the 5 steps, the problem, empathy, answer, change, end result for this Clarity advising consulting firm. So problem, you can incorporate AI to dramatically improve your bottom line, but you don't know where to start. That's the problem. Empathy statement, we get it. AI is moving fast and creating a custom plan can be confusing. Answer, Clarity AI Advisors will give you a clear, practical roadmap to adopt AI. Change, you and your entire team will master AI in the specific areas that will increase both revenue and profit, and the end result is your business will be more productive, win more customers, and make more money. It's 5 sound bites, 5 front steps. That's it. And so I'm going to break these down one by one so you guys can know how to apply them to your business and your organization, hopefully a little bit better, and I will call back to this a few times as I have examples. So let's jump in. Soundbite number 1, which is problem. And again, the purpose of this purpose of the problem soundbite is to attract attention. Your customer's life has been disrupted by something, or they need to see some change in their life. And so when you call out the problem very clearly, they're going to stop and they're going to pay attention. And I don't think nothing in marketing matters more than like getting the right problem. Michael said it. You guys were talking about in your panel, like you have to understand the right problem that you're trying to solve and communicate the right way. Sometimes businesses are close. They're just not quite right on the right wording. If you think about, though, again, back to movies, every single movie that you watched, it's not interesting until something goes wrong, right? It doesn't engage us until there's like a problem. I mean, if the hero meets the love of his life and they date and they're happy and they get married, and the audience is just sitting there, so what? It only gets interesting when the hero finds out that the gal that he's in love with is secretly engaged to his jerk brother, right? And it's like, and then you're thinking, okay, now there's a problem. How's he going to get out of this? So when we present the problem that our customers are experiencing, we open that story loop where they're like, okay, well, how do we get out of this? How do we close this loop? How do we get out of this? And we've drawn them in, and we've engaged them. And so that's what gets people to keep reading. It gets people to continue up your steps onto your porch because you've named a problem that's very specific to them and what they're experiencing. Now, you should really figure out what problem you're going to own. Because again, owning a problem helps you create automatic association. You want people to think of you the moment the problem shows up, right? We all have those brains in our brain when we're not even thinking about it, but if we have a particular problem that comes up in our world, you know, they used to call it top of mind awareness, you know, like whole thing, like who do we think of? You know, if I have a plumbing issue, who do I think of? Or, you know, if if I need to ship something overnight, FedEx is who comes to mind first every single time, even though they're probably not the best solution these days, they're still who I think of, right? So like the aspirin example, you know, when you have a headache, you're going for an aspirin-like product, right? Bayer didn't have to remind you about aspirin. The problem itself actually made the association to their product. And so your soundbite strategy for the problem should own a specific problem that your customers are experiencing. So, and again, your job is to make people think of you every time your problem comes up. You know, when their dog is barking, your product. When their roof is leaking, your product. You know, when your tax bill is too high, your product. Whatever that is. When you need to be a better piano player, your product. When you need uniforms, your product, right? You know, so how do you dial that in? This is an example of a window cleaner. I saw a version of this card in Nashville, and it just basically said, "Are your windows dirty?" That's it, you know. But I was thinking about this. Look out the window. Look nearest window of his dirty call. Like it's really simple, but I have never forgot this, right? I've never forgot it, right? And so, what problem is it that you're going to own? What problem is it you're really going to own? And this sometimes takes some work to figure it out. Because as brands, I'm in this business, and we sometimes struggle with this for ourselves, with our own customers. And it's changed. The problems have changed over time, over 36 years. Because we can name the problem a certain way, but sometimes it takes outside entities to help you figure out how to use the words that actually make sense to your customers. And it comes back to that curse of knowledge piece again. Yes. Yeah.
What would you call
this one?
I really love that. Look out the nearest window. To me, it's like, what would you call that? Because it's just such a good phrase to get you.
Yeah, it's kind of the answer from sound. I mean, it's the problem soundbite with a little bit of an answer kind of mixed into it.
It's just cool, like,
yeah.
You find yourself like, that's kind of funny, and I'm looking at the other windows going, man, that's a good.
Yeah.
You got me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you got me. Yeah.
Is it simply just a soundbite, or is there some version?
This is pieces of the soundbite, and as I dig in this more, you can see how I pull pieces. When I build, I actually built a marketing campaign for that Clarity Advisors of where I grab pieces from the soundbites to kind of pull into the campaign. Because I read that Clarity Advisors kind of problem soundbite, and it reads as a paragraph, but really, in a sense, you don't have to always use it that way, but it's the essence of what those lines are that you're using throughout. And let me dig into more stuff, and then I don't want to dig too much time into the next speaker's time, but...
It's okay, it's mine, it's fine.
Okay, well, good. So what problem you're going to own? So this is an example of some ad work that was done. This was a coffee shop that had created kind of a course. They'd been in business for a while. They created a course to help other shop owners kind of train and retain people. And he had a landing page and he ran ads, and this is the first crack at the copy was drowning in coffee shop chaos. Stop doing everything yourself, and that in about 48 hours, he got 18 clicks. And now that's not terrible. Drowning in coffee shop chaos is a problem, but it's still a little vague. It's vague in the sense as what does chaos actually mean? So it creates another question. What is that? It's like I can interpret that any way. Does it mean I need more coffee beans? Or my customers complaining? Like, what's the chaos piece? Where the language, when it was changed to this, losing baristas faster than you can hire. It doesn't have to be this way. In the same amount of time, the clicks went up significantly. Same budget, 7 times more clicks, but just like nailing on the problem a little bit more specific, right? Because that was what their product was about, right? So just thinking through it with a little bit more specificity. So again, what problem will you own? This is the most important soundbite, is that you own the problem that your actual customers experience, and you can communicate in a way that's clear and concise. I'm going to go long.
Okay, go long.
All right. I'm just like looking at the timer, how long I've gone, and I'm like, I'm going long. Going to the end zone. Empathy, number 2. So again, this is that you called out the problem. Now you need to show empathy. And this is where you position yourself as the guide instead of the hero. You position yourself as the guide. So when you show up with empathy, you create a bond. This is where you connect with what they're going through. You show them that you understand what they're going through. Your customer is the hero of the story, not you. Because think about every great story you've ever watched, right? The hero is the one with the problem, right? They're the ones with the problem. They're the ones that are on the journey. They're the ones that we're rooting for, that he'll figure out how to win the girl from his jerk brother, And you're not that person. As the organization, you should want to be not the hero, but you want to be the guide. Like, for example, Gandalf didn't carry the ring. Frodo did, right? Morpheus didn't free humanity, right? Neo did. Dumbledore didn't defeat Voldemort. Harry did. Rafiki didn't claim the Pride Lands. Simba did. Mr. Miyagi didn't win the tournament. It was Daniel-san who did, right? It's like that, yeah. So it's like you position yourself as a guide. You are that guide, that wise elder, that trusted mentor, the grandmother figure in a lot of movies. Every movie has this character, at least one or two of these characters in the movies. That's the one who shows up with empathy and a plan, and that's you. That's you. You're the guide. 3 reasons why you should never play the hero. 1, they're weak characters. Being the heroes, they're actually the weak characters. Think about it. If you spend all your time talking about how great you are, and how you've built so much, and that's really not confidence. It actually comes across as insecurity. Strong characters don't actually need to announce their presence. It just shows, right? Second, when you play the hero, you're actually in a different story than your customer. Your customer is the hero of their own story, and they've got a problem, and they are the ones that need help. And if you show up talking about yourself, you're not actually in their story anymore. You're actually in your own story. And then third, customer isn't looking for another hero. They're looking for a guide. I mean, Luke Skywalker didn't look for another farm kid on Tatooine to help him, right? We need someone who knows the way, who's gone the way, someone who can help them win. So your customer is the hero of the story. So don't play it, be the guide. Always play the guide. So how do you position yourself as a guide? And you just do that with empathy. It really is. You position yourself in this place of where you affirm, hey, you're not crazy for feeling this way. You name the struggle that they're experiencing. We see exactly what you're dealing with. And you show solidarity. You're not standing alone in this. And when you do those things, you really do. You create bond, you create trust. Think about any good friend or mentor who acknowledges the pain that you're feeling and makes that connection with you, right? You just get drawn in even tighter, even closer. And that's how you position yourself as the guide. The third soundbite is the answer soundbite. This is where you position your product as a solution to their problem. This really elevates the value of your product or the idea that you offer. You want to position your offer to the solution to the problem, and that's it. And most businesses get this wrong, and it goes back to the aspirin example, right? Most people are showing the back of the label instead of showing the clear, this is what we do. So they lead with features, or they explain the process, or they go through all this stuff on a men's clothing site that I don't really care about. They're talking about methodology or ingredients. Just stop explaining. Just tell them what you do and how you solve their problem. And so when someone actually hears this answer soundbite, it should actually, again, I talked about this earlier, connect back to that problem you opened with. You opened with a problem, now you're presenting an answer. So for example, in that Clarity AI example, the problem meets solution, the whole job. You don't know where to start with Clarity AI. Clarity AI advisors will give you a clear roadmap. Losing baristas faster than you can hire. Answer, here's a training program that fixes that. So, and again, it's that cursive knowledge scale. It's 2, 3, right? It's simple. It's like third grader kind of language. No jargon, no industry speak, just plain language that tells people exactly what it is that you do. And here's what happens when you've gotten to this point. You have named their problem and you've named it clearly and they get it. And then you made them feel something because you showed empathy and you've built trust. And now you've presented this solution, right? And when you've done that and you've done it well, it no longer lands as a product or service. It actually lands as relief, right? It actually, at this point, now it actually lands as relief. They're like, oh, great. And that's actually the difference between selling and guiding. And the fourth soundbite is the change soundbite, and this is where you add even more value to your offer, and this is where you're telling people who they're going to become on the other side. People don't just buy products, people buy better versions of themselves, right? We buy things that make us look good, things that make us feel good, things that make our life easier. People buy better versions of themselves. And then again, the purpose of this soundbite is to add personal value to the offer. So you've already positioned your problem as a solution, a product as a solution to their problem, and you're going to add even more value by showing them transformation that happens when they use their product. And this is where you can, you show them not just what they get to show them what they become. So here's the Clarity AI advisors again. For Clarity AI advisors, the change soundbite was, you and your entire team will master AI in specific areas that will increase both revenue and profit. So notice the transformation. The problem was you don't know where to start with AI. And then the empathy was, we get it. AI is moving fast and creating a custom plan can be kind of confusing. And the answer was, Clarity AI advisors will give you a clear, practical roadmap to adopt AI. And that changes you and your entire team. So that's transformation, really. That's kind of like this identity shift that happens there. When you were someone you didn't know that you didn't know where to start with AI. Now you're becoming someone who has mastered it, and it's not just you; it's everybody on your team, and that becomes beyond product benefit. Because again, people don't just buy products; they buy better versions of themselves. We all live in this place of like an aspirational identity. When someone buys a Peloton, they're not buying just an exercise bike. They're buying the identity, they're buying the community, they're buying someone that shows up, that pushes through. There's a whole, that takes their health seriously. You don't make that kind of investment unless these are the kind of things that you envision yourself to be. That better version of ourselves that we believe that we can become by using this product or service. And because we don't buy from utility alone, this really aligns with who we want to be. And this taps into that deeply human self-concept of, we always are carrying this picture of what we're trying to become. So understanding who your customer wants to be is super important. Like what is that aspirational, transformational identity on the other side is helpful when you're building sound bites. And then the final sound bite is the end result. And this is kind of like the happily ever after. I mean, obviously every movie has this, obligatory scene. And so the purpose of this is to kind of cast that vision that motivates and directs action. You've opened the problem and now you need to close the solution with that problem. Again, you're painting a picture of what life is going to look like when that problem is gone for forever. And this is what motivates people to take action. It's not features, it's not benefits or vision. It's a picture of a better future. And again, every movie does this, right? Every movie has to close that story loop. There's that climatic scene, the obligatory scene at the end where everything gets resolved, right? Everything is better. So if you open a story loop with the problem, you have to close it, and that's the same that's true with these sound bites. You present the problem, we need to close it with what the end result's going to be. The Clarity AI examples, you can incorporate AI to dramatically improve your bottom line, but you don't know where to start. So we close with this: your business will be more productive, win more customers, and make more money. Yeah, the change is the personal change that they're going to experience. It's more the aspirational fact of the individual that's buying your product. And the end result is more of that bigger thing. Well, this is what the whole world looks like when you're done at the end. So when you're casting, when a vision, you're casting for your client. What vision are you casting for your client? That soundbite has to kind of ends up becoming your brand promise, right? Is that your business will be more productive? Is it never lose another barista? Is it have the cleanest windows on the block? Is it sleep better at night? Is it feel more confident at meetings? Is it communicate clearly and consistently and confidently about your business? Whatever that is. I think Peloton's also a great example of this. Their end result just isn't just you'll be fit. That's actually kind of boring, and that's every other fitness company, right? But their vision is together we go far. And so that really, when you think about the whole Peloton community, that's about community, that's about belonging, that's about being part of something that's bigger than yourself. And this connects well with who their customer is and who their audience is. And again, your end result soundbite should just be a vision of a brighter future and that the clients will desire and experience for themselves. It's not like you'll use AI better, but it's more like your business will be more productive when more customers make more money. Do you see the difference between that? It's like, it's not you'll retain employees better, which is what a lot of people will say. It's like you'll build a team that stays. It's a better vision picture. Or you'll have clean windows, but you'll love looking out your windows every morning. It's like changing the language that we use. So again, your messaging campaign that invites customers into a story, they use all of these sound bites. And so where do they go? They go everywhere, but not randomly. There's some I almost said strategery. There's some strategery around it, some strategy around it. And so I'm going to show you a real quick example of just kind of how we built something for this Clarity AI advisors, just to see a little bit how our brains work of pulling these things in. So back to the front door, around the house, nice, clean, approachable kind of things. Where you've got your front steps, a front porch, your front door. You've built a messaging campaign around this, and so we've got our sound bites, and these are that curiosity phase, those kind of 5 main things that we're communicating in some shape or form. And we're not using these all the time. We might use them in pieces. Maybe you call out the problem in a social media post. Maybe it's the problem with the answer. Maybe it's a vision statement that's in a social media post. But you've basically got this idea of you can incorporate AI to dramatically improve your bottom line, but you don't know where to start. And I built this example because even though I'm not in this business, this is a conversation that comes up with my clients all the time. They all want this. They all want to do this. Tyler should have stayed and saw this because he couldn't use it for his business. But we get it. AI is moving fast, and creating a custom plan can be confusing. That is a common statement that I've heard. The answer will give you a clear, practical roadmap to adopt AI. It's making clear, it's practical, it's easy. The change, you and your entire team will master AI in specific areas that will increase both revenue and profit. And then at end result, your business will be more productive, win more customers, and make more money. And so to kind of answer that, change and end result are kind of like a double down in the sense of just like kind of more of a small level personal value change. And then the end result is a bigger kind of double down on what that end result is going to be at the end. And then, so you've gone up the front steps, now you're on the porch. These are some quick ideas of just like what could be like that curiosity or the enlightenment stage. Maybe it's a lead generator. Smart CEO's roadmap to AI adoption. So see that we're using language from the sound bites there, right? The roadmap to adopt AI, that came directly from the answer soundbite. Maybe we do a webinar series, 10 places every business should be using AI to increase revenue and decrease profits. And that increase revenue and make more money, those tie directly to the end result soundbite. So we're not using the exact soundbite language, but we're using the essence of what those are and what we're calling that diagnostic tool, your gap analysis, find places you might adopt AI right now. Again, that helps people, that's reinforces some of the sound bites throughout the whole thing. And so that's like your front porch and people are standing there. And then you would offer some, now I'm going to pay, whether it's some expiring bonus that's a strategy session or some fast track pilot program or some Founders Circle early partner pricing, some aspect of some offer that you're making that you're getting people to commit and walk through the door, and become a customer and take out their credit card, which is what we all want. So again, what do you do with your new sound bites? Use them everywhere, but strategically throughout all the phases of your customer journey, curiosity, enlightenment, commitment. They inform everything that you do, every piece, every content, every ad, every email, every sales conversation. Your business will grow faster when you decrease the cognitive load in all three phases of your messaging campaign. I opened with this in the beginning. Remember, the confused mind says no. So if your curiosity sound bites are confusing, people aren't going to pay attention. If your enlightenment collateral is confusing, people won't trust you, right? If your commitment message is confusing, people won't buy. But when you decrease that cognitive load in all the three phases, people will understand what you do and they will engage. Yeah. And my promise is if you do this, I've seen it time and time again, build some sound bites, get them clear, use them consistently, and you'll get the right people to engage because not because you were clever, not because you spent more money on marketing. A lot of people just think to throw more money at it. Actually, you can probably, if you had good sound bites, you could spend less, but because you got clear on what it is that you do. Again, a confused mind says no, and a clear message gets the sale. So thank you guys, appreciate it. I went over a little bit, like 2 minutes. If any of this was intriguing and you want to find out more and you want to connect with me, that QR code there will actually get you some time on my calendar, and would love to connect with you guys.
Do you have any questions?
Cassidy?
I was gonna ask, how can I leverage AI to change my messaging from, the starting point to, okay, simple it down to this? Are there certain prompts that you give that could help us concise that down?
Mm-hmm. You want that for free?
We'll connect later.
State your case.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you grind at it, you can probably get close. It's like we're doing with the you need a budget with YNAB. Like we came to that first shorter, never worry about money again, and that worked. But we're still testing more things, around it with slight different language changes. So they obviously have money and budget to test lots of things and see what works. But that's part of what we do, and because again, our clients' needs have changed over the years, and things are changing so fast. And I test them in sales conversations, like what's resonating, what's not resonating. Just tweaking the language, trying to. And again, how do I always? This is the question I always ask. How can I say the same thing, but in the fewest amount of words possible? Yeah. So it's like so for me with our clients, I want to help them clearly, consistently, and confidently be able to talk about their business. Right?
Michael, do you have any technology suggestions for like A/B testing? I've seen a lot of stuff over my time with SEO and content marketing.
Yeah, we just use the old standard kind of, Google Ads, all that stuff, for A/B testing, yeah.
It's kind of like live, like, like you'll swap in different divs and things in real time.
The thing is, it's hard when you are running an organization. It is, I spend lots of time working with your clients with this. They communicate to me what a problem they think that they're solving, and it sounds great. But the real work is figuring out how is the customer thinking about that problem in their head? How are they wording it? How is that going to land with them? And that's where the real work is, to dig into that kind of language of what they're thinking. And so I always will go to, when I'm doing strategy sessions with clients, it's like when your customers call, when you talk to clients, what are consistent things what are the consistent questions you're getting asked? What's the consistent problems you hear coming up? How are they wording it? How are they saying it? That's usually where a little bit of the baseline of that is. So.
You had a slide at one point in there that showed like the
YNAB, yeah.
Yeah, YNAB.
Mm-hmm.
And then you showed the first version of the complicated, the simple one. I'm curious to know, if you have any numbers or conversion rates.
I could get those. I don't have those on me, what the conversion rate difference is. I knew the ones from the barista ads, the difference of the clicks just in the short period of time. But yeah, if you go to their site right now, you'll see that message, and sometimes you'll see another one that's slightly different. They're testing two back and forth right now. So.
Do you have an average difference between simplistic messaging?
It varies from client to client and what you're selling. Are you selling a widget on Shopify, or are you selling a service? Right? It's hard to quantify it. The business analyst guy is asking the business analyst questions. Yeah.
I mean, but is there room in the world for button my Instagram or my whatever has longer form content and like this is.
I think your longer form content should be like long form video, podcasts, YouTube, that kind of stuff. I mean, think about the doom scroll thread. Man, you want to be, if you're trying to grab people's attention, you need to be quick
style. Yeah,
quick,
seconds, right?
quick.
But if you want to back it up, right?
Yeah.
It's like part of your strategy should just be like
Yep.
your channel.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we do tons of content. I do tons of content. I mean, my face is all over the internet, unfortunately. And we test lots of different things and like trying to figure out, and we're doing this for ourselves and for our clients, what is actually working, what's not actually working, so.
You guys do like the UGC type ads?
We do some of those, yeah.
Okay, that's
yeah.
part of what your house
Yeah,
provides?
yeah.
Are you looking for talent?
You want to know? I probably get an email a day of someone offering their UGC talents because apparently that's the new side hustle of the generation. Yeah. And then I look at their profiles and you're like, you have 100 followers.
But that's another thing though. Do you need followers? Or do you
No, I mean, yes and no. It just depends on who they are. But it's like, what I've seen, actually in my demographic, us wiser people, the 50 plus, like what a lot of brands are doing is they're hiring you to record videos, not for your own channels, for their channels. Yeah. So.
Looks a little more testimonial or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's still it's interesting. UGC is interesting because it's like, is it really legit?
Yeah.
We're in a world of Tyler talked about it earlier. It's a total world of distrust right now. It's like you don't believe anything you see. You shouldn't believe anything you see. And I actually love it because I'm very old school. And then face-to-face meetings and handwritten notes and real old school authentic business relationship stuff. Getting on airplanes to go actually visit customers in person. That kind of stuff. I feel like that gives people who are doing that have a leg up over the people that are just bombarding people with the generic garbage.
Content's cheap, authenticity is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's all just lowered the bar of everybody can use AI to create content, but what bar do you want? Where do you want to be? How do you want to stand out, right? So, thank you guys for having me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.